If you're a parent, what I'm about to tell you will shatter everything you think you know about protecting your children. This is Amelia's story. 15 minutes that every single parent needs to hear. But there's one mistake at the very end that even the most vigilant parents make, and it's the reason children suffer in silence. Amelia was 13 years old when her mother's boyfriend molested her. She did exactly what we tell children to do. She told her mother immediately. She used her voice. She reported it right away. And her mother called her a slut, blamed her, chose the boyfriend over her own daughter. That was just the beginning. Because what happened over the next 4 years was a pattern of betrayal so deep, so systematic, that Amelia lost her childhood, her sense of safety, and almost lost her voice entirely. But here's what makes this story different. Amelia survived. She fought back. And what she learned about the warning signs that adults miss could save your child's life. Because Amelia's story isn't just about one predator, it's about multiple abusers, a mother who enabled them, a legal system that failed, and the one truth that every parent needs to understand. Sometimes the danger doesn't come from strangers. Sometimes it comes from the people we trust most, and sometimes the biggest threat is the adult who should be protecting them. Let me tell you about Amelia's childhood, because understanding where she came from explains everything that happened next.
If you're listening right now, help me prove something wrong. My mom said I wouldn't even reach 2,000 subscribers, but I believe stories like this deserve to be heard. Help me show her that these stories matter. Please subscribe and let's keep breathing life into stories that were never meant to stay silent. Now let us continue.
Amelia grew up in a home where chaos was normal. Her mother had bipolar disorder. She struggled with alcoholism. The house was always filled with tension, uncertainty, instability. Her mother moved between violent relationships. Boyfriends came and went. Some were verbally abusive. Some were physically violent. Amelia learned to read a room, to stay quiet, to make herself small. She thought this was just what families looked like. Her mother's relationships followed a pattern. Intense at first, then volatile, then dangerous, then they'd end. And another one would begin. Amelia watched her mother prioritize these men over everything, over stability, over safety, over her children. At 13, Amelia was navigating a home that felt like a minefield, where adult emotions were unpredictable, where she had to parent herself, where she learned that her needs came last. She didn't know it yet, but this environment was setting her up for what came next. One of her mother's boyfriends molested her. She was 13. He was an adult, someone her mother had brought into their home, someone who was supposed to be safe. Amelia didn't freeze. She didn't stay silent. She told her mother that same day. She did everything right. She used her voice. She reported what happened. She trusted that her mother would protect her. Her mother didn't believe her. Worse than that, her mother blamed her. Called her a liar, a slut, said she was trying to ruin her mother's relationship, that she wanted attention, that she was making it up. Her mother chose the boyfriend over her daughter. Let that sink in. A 13-year-old girl reports sexual abuse, and her mother sides with the abuser. Amelia learned a devastating lesson that day. Adults don't always protect children. Sometimes they sacrifice them. What happens to a child when the person who's supposed to protect them becomes the one who blames them? Amelia started to believe it was her fault, that her body was the problem, that she had done something wrong, that she was the slut her mother called her. She was 13 years old, and she was being taught that sexual abuse was something she caused. The confusion was paralyzing. She knew something wrong had happened, but the person who was supposed to validate that feeling told her she was lying. Amelia learned to stay quiet after that. She learned that speaking up brought punishment, not protection. She learned that adults prioritized their own needs over her safety. And she learned that her body was something that attracted danger, and that somehow that was her fault. These beliefs didn't just affect that moment. They shaped everything that came after. Because when the next predator appeared, Amelia didn't have the tools to recognize what was happening. She'd been taught that this was normal, that this was her fault, that speaking up was pointless. Her mother's next serious relationship was with a neighbor. He moved into their home when Amelia was still in her early teens. At first, he seemed different from the others, less volatile, more stable. He had a job. He seemed responsible. Amelia's mother was happy. The house felt calmer. Amelia thought maybe things were getting better. She had no idea what was actually beginning. The boyfriend started commenting on Amelia's appearance. How pretty she was. How mature she looked. How she didn't look like a kid anymore. At first, it felt like compliments. Amelia had been taught by her mother's previous response that her body was shameful. These comments felt like validation, like maybe she wasn't the problem. But the comments became more specific. About her body. About what she was wearing. About how other boys must be interested in her. The boundaries were blurring, and Amelia didn't know how to name what was happening. Here's the part that's hardest to understand. Amelia's mother was there for these comments. She heard her boyfriend flirting with her teenage daughter. She saw the way he looked at her, the way he found excuses to be alone with her, the gifts he bought her, the special treatment. And she didn't stop it. In fact, she seemed to encourage it. She'd leave them alone together. She'd make comments about how Amelia should be grateful for the attention, how her boyfriend was being so generous. He started buying Amelia gifts, expensive ones, clothes, jewelry, things she couldn't afford herself. He told her she was special, different from other girls her age, more mature, more understanding. He could talk to her about things he couldn't discuss with anyone else. He created situations where they'd be alone, movie nights when her mother worked late shifts, driving her places when her mother wasn't available, helping her with homework in her room. Every single one of these is a textbook grooming tactic, but Amelia didn't know that. Amelia felt uncomfortable. Deep in her gut, something felt wrong about the attention, the gifts, the alone time. But every time that uncomfortable feeling arose, she remembered what her mother had said after the first assault, that she was making things up, that she wanted attention, that she was the problem. So she pushed the feeling down. She told herself this was normal, that she was overreacting, that he was just being nice. And because her mother was aware and didn't object, Amelia assumed it must be okay. The sexual abuse started gradually, a touch that lasted too long, sitting too close, comments about her body becoming more explicit. Then it escalated. Inappropriate touching, sexual contact, exploitation that should never happen between an adult and a child. Amelia didn't know how to make it stop. She felt trapped in her own home. Her mother was aware there was no way she couldn't be, and her mother had already made it clear whose side she was on. So, Amelia endured it. She dissociated. She survived. This became her reality. This became normal in their household. Amelia went through the motions of being a teenager. She went to school. She did her homework. She spent time with friends. But she was carrying this secret, this shame, this confusion about what was happening to her. She split herself into two people, the Amelia who existed in the world and the Amelia who was being exploited at home. This is what trauma does to children. It teaches them to compartmentalize, to survive by pretending. For years, this was Amelia's life. She functioned, she survived, she kept the secret because speaking had already proven dangerous. Her mother never asked if she was okay, never questioned why Amelia had become quieter, more withdrawn, never wondered why her teenage daughter spent so much time in her room. Or maybe she did know. Maybe she chose not to see it, because seeing it would mean making a choice. And she'd already shown which choice she'd make. Amelia had a younger sister, and when her sister got a little older, Amelia started noticing something that made her blood run cold. The boyfriend was looking at her sister the same way he looked at Amelia, making similar comments, giving her special attention. The pattern was repeating, and this time, Amelia could see it clearly. Seeing it happen to someone else, someone she loved, someone she wanted to protect, made Amelia realize the truth she'd been avoiding. This wasn't her fault. This wasn't normal. This was abuse. The protective instinct she felt for her sister cut through all the confusion, all the self-blame, all the normalization. She couldn't let this happen to her sister. She couldn't let this man hurt another child the way he'd hurt her. That realization, that clarity, gave Amelia something she hadn't had in years, the will to fight back. She just needed to get out first. She needed to get safe, and then she could speak. When Amelia turned 17, she moved out. She got away from that house, from her mother, from her mother's boyfriend. Distance gave her perspective. For the first time in years, she could breathe. She could think clearly. She could start processing what had actually happened to her. And she realized she couldn't keep this secret anymore. Not for herself, and definitely not for her sister. She needed to tell someone who would believe her, someone who would protect her. Amelia told her father everything. The years of abuse, her mother's complicity, her fear for her sister. And her father believed her immediately. He didn't question her. He didn't blame her. He didn't ask why she hadn't spoken sooner. He supported her decision to report what had happened, to involve the authorities, to try to get justice and protect her sister. For the first time since she was 13, an adult chose to protect Amelia instead of harming her. The legal process began. Investigations, interviews, building a case. And then came the moment that broke something fundamental in Amelia. Her mother testified. In court, against her own daughter. Her mother stood up in that courtroom and said Amelia was lying. That nothing had happened. That Amelia had always been a troubled child who made things up for attention. Her mother protected her abuser and threw her daughter to the wolves. Amelia had to sit in that courtroom and recount every detail of her abuse. In front of strangers, in front of her abuser, in front of her mother who was calling her a liar. She had to describe what he did to her, how it made her feel, why she didn't report it sooner, why she stayed in that house. Every question felt like an accusation. Every answer felt like she was on trial instead of him. The defense attorney made it clear they weren't just defending him, they were attacking her. The defense asked why she didn't leave sooner, why she didn't tell other adults, why she maintained normal interactions with him if he was abusing her. Every question was designed to make the jury doubt her, to make it seem like if it was real abuse, she would have acted differently. But that's not how trauma works. That's not how children respond to abuse from caregivers. That's not how survival works when you're trapped in your own home. The defense didn't care about the truth. They cared about creating reasonable doubt. The jury came back with their verdict, not guilty. Despite Amelia's testimony, despite her courage in coming forward, despite the patterns, despite everything, he walked free. Amelia sat in that courtroom and watched her abuser smile, watched him shake his lawyer's hand, watched him walk out of there as if he'd never done anything wrong. Justice failed her. The system failed her, and her mother was sitting on his side of the courtroom. But the abuse didn't end with the verdict, because months later, Amelia received legal papers. Her abuser was filing a restraining order against her, claiming she was harassing him, that she was a danger to him. It was a final act of control, a way to continue the abuse through the legal system, a way to make her the aggressor in the story. This is what abusers do. When they can't silence you through fear, they try to silence you through the courts. Amelia could have crumbled. She could have let him win this final battle. She could have stayed silent and let the restraining order go through. But something in her refused. After everything she'd survived, after all the times she'd been silenced, after all the ways the system had failed her, she decided to fight. She represented herself in court. She walked back into a courtroom. She faced him again. And this time, she was ready. She had her voice, she had her truth, and she wasn't going to let him take that from her. The judge denied the restraining order. Amelia won. It wasn't the justice she deserved from the criminal trial, but it was something. It was a moment where she stood up for herself and won. For the first time since she was 13, Amelia felt like she had power over her own life, like she had a voice that mattered, like she could fight back and win. That moment didn't erase the trauma, but it gave her something crucial, proof that she was strong enough to survive this. Now, let's talk about the warning signs that were present throughout Amelia's entire story. Because these patterns exist in thousands of families right now. Adult complicity. Amelia's mother knew what was happening. She saw the grooming. She heard the inappropriate comments. She created situations for them to be alone. And she chose not to protect her daughter. This is one of the most dangerous factors in child sexual abuse, when another adult enables the abuser, when a parent prioritizes their relationship over their child's safety. It happens more often than you think. Victim blaming by a parent. When Amelia reported the first assault, her mother blamed her instead of protecting her. This taught Amelia that speaking up was dangerous. It silenced her for years. Grooming tactics, excessive gifts, special treatment, creating isolation, making the child feel chosen, mature, different. These are textbook predator behaviors. Normalization. When abuse becomes part of the daily routine, children stop recognizing it as abuse. They adapt to survive. And behavioral changes. Withdrawal, quietness, grades dropping, any adult paying attention should have noticed. Here's that mistake I mentioned at the beginning, the one that even vigilant parents make. We assume that other adults will prioritize children's safety over their own needs. Amelia's mother prioritized her relationships over her daughter's well-being. The legal system prioritized procedure over justice. Adults repeatedly chose everything except protecting Amelia. Here's what you need to do right now. Talk to your children about the fact that adults aren't always safe, that even family members, even people you trust, can be dangerous. That they should tell you if any adult makes them uncomfortable, and that you will always believe them and protect them. Watch for grooming behaviors, excessive gifts, special treatment, adults who create alone time with your child, boundary violations disguised as affection. And if your child reports abuse, believe them immediately. Protect them first. Question later. Choose your child over any relationship, any convenience, any discomfort. Amelia survived because she found the strength within herself, but children shouldn't have to find that strength alone. They need adults who protect them fiercely, without question, without hesitation. Share this story, because somewhere right now, a child is living Amelia's story, and maybe their parents need to hear this. Maybe you can be the reason they recognize the signs. Maybe you can be the reason a child gets protected before it's too late. You have the power to protect the children in your life. Use it.